Frontier by Maggot Moshpit, Chapter 15. Rico paced the narrow alleyway nervously, tapping his fingers against his pant leg. He looked up into the sky, if it could be called that. It was more of a gigantic panorama of scaffolding, through which a gas giant could be seen so close that it filled the entire sky. He watched as repair personnel floated around the scaffolding, repairing ships that were docked among them. Rico tried to distract himself from his current predicament by marveling at what an engineering feat Alpha 2 was. A massive oxygen field in space without gravity that allowed repair crews full versatility without needing to either eliminate gravity on a planet or have crews wear spacesuits. After the repair station was set up, the village was put in. A few houses for permanent residents, a hotel, curiosity shop, quite a lot of public space for patrons, and a restaurant. All of this was situated below the repair area, and only had gravity for 6 meters up. If someone threw their keys high enough, they could be lost forever. Rico watched the repair crews patch up an Atrian battlecruiser. The rumor was that it was almost torn apart by a plasma storm. Alpha 2 was owned and managed by Getio, an Atrian civilian who didn't care who docked at his station as long as they weren't on the run or broke. Rico himself was neither, but his intentions weren't exactly pure, which was why he was there, in that alley, in the first place. Rico ran his hand through his raven black hair as he checked his ESCOM. He was late. Rico was a tall man, born in space to a family of smugglers. He had no facial hair save some stubble he forgot to shave that morning. Other than that, he looked like your average guy, which is what made his job so easy. One expects people like him to have handlebar mustaches and wear black clothes. A sound behind him made him spin so fast he almost threw his ESCOM into the wall of the restaurant whose alley he was using as his meeting place.
Well. Rico, you showed up. I expected you to cut and run.
Rico barely managed to keep his nerves under control.
Kane, we both know what would happen to me if I did.
Kane stood at the other end of the alley, alone, though he probably had goons lurking around every corner. He was a human as well, with curly brown hair, squinty eyes, and a strange way of setting his jaw that constantly put a smirk on his face. He stepped forward casually.
So, the fact that you are here tells me you have a ship somehow.
Well, no. You see...
Kane punched Rico in the stomach without warning. Rico crumpled to the tiled ground.
Oof!
Kane pulled him up with incredible strength, something Rico expected he paid a ridiculous sum of money for, be it cybernetics or some drug.
Rico, when I hired you, you said you could have a ship transport my goods without a trace by yesterday.
He threw him to the ground, Rico hitting his elbow hard.
I could get rid of you and hire someone competent, but you're the only person who can get me what I want in this godforsaken metal patchwork.
Kane crouched beside Rico.
This might be hard to believe, but I work for someone. I was instructed to escort their cargo to them in secret. If I can't do that, they'll get very angry with me. Then I'll be very angry at you. You wouldn't survive the experience.
Kane stood and strolled to the mouth of the alley.
2 days. If you can't find me a transport by then, well, I don't have to tell you what will happen.
By the time Rico was able to crawl to his feet, there was no trace of Kane. Rico sighed. It looked like he had his work cut out for him. He stumbled to the curio shop, aptly named Curios, from which he ran his operation. As he walked through the door, a frantic-looking otter ran up to him.
Rico, I need something.
Rico walked past her and behind the counter.
What is it this time?
She pulled at her claws, her face twitching slightly every few seconds.
You know what it is.
Rico pulled a device from under the counter, a small platform with a clear glass surface. He grabbed what appeared to be an antique toy block from the shelf and placed it on the platform, then pressed a button. The block dissolved, then lost all color until it became a white powder, which Rico poured into a small pouch and handed to the Adrian woman. The woman sniffed the contents of the pouch, sneezed, then handed Rico a wad of cash, which he pocketed.
You ever try this stuff? Oh, clears the sinuses right up.
Rico wagged his finger.
I only deal it. Never try it.
The woman nodded to him, then darted out of the shop. Although his shop had been under investigation before, they never came up with enough evidence to press charges. Rico turned around and poked his head through a doorway behind the counter and yelled up a flight of stairs.
Lenny! Get down here and bring the arrivals manifest!
There was a bang from upstairs, and Pink Lenny, a weasel, ran down the stairs holding a data pad. He was tall with pure white fur. He had a lean and hungry look, and terrible posture. Although Rico knew how to speak Atrian, Pink Lenny was brought up by humans and didn't speak any. He tossed the manifest.
Here, Rick. Kane didn't, beat you up too bad, did he?
Rico and Lenny had been partners in crime for a while now, and both of them knew that they could worm their way out of this one. Rico shook his head as he scrolled the arrivals list.
Nah, but he will if we don't find someone willing to transport illegal cargo. Let's see. Horizon, no. Stargazer, no. Goliath. I'm pretty sure her captain wants to kill me. The Frontier, never heard of her before.
He brought up the ship specs and crew manifest. Pink Lenny screwed up his nose.
Ew. This is one of them old dime-a-dozen freighters. H model, right?
Rico chuckled.
There are a million places to hide shit in these things. Wait, Zach?
Lenny gave him a dumb look.
Who's Zach?
Zach Wild. We knew each other.
Lenny clapped his paws together.
Great. Manipulate the shit out of him and save our skins.
Rico tossed the pad onto the table.
That's what we do.
Lena piloted the Frontier into the oxygen bubble in between the intricate metal beams and tunnels to the spot Prax had reserved. But Prax did only that. Lef would have to come up with the money for a custom refit himself. He sat in the captain's chair, silently fuming to himself. Lef was rarely in a bad mood, and when he was, it wasn't pleasant for his crew. Lena eased off the thrusters as they slowed to a stop. 2 station personnel jumped from beams on opposite sides of the Frontier, carrying 2 magnetic cables. They attached them to the hull and they went taut, holding the Frontier in place. Celia switched on the external camera and watched as the cables were attached.
We've docked.
Lef didn't answer. He was too busy thinking of ways to make money and wring Prax's neck at the same time. Lef knew it wasn't Prax's fault they crashed on that planet, but he wanted somewhere to direct his anger. Celia watched as one of the clamps pulled a section of hull plating clean off. The attendant was lucky enough to be able to jet away in time. The other clamp automatically disengaged to avoid pulling the Frontier into the scaffolding. The comm beeped. Lef answered.
Hey, you here for repairs? 'Cause you need 'em bad.
Yes, we are.
For the sound of your voice, I'd say it was a rough trip. I'm Gedio, owner of this place. We can get you all patched up and ready to go for a reasonable price.
Lef found he wanted to glare at Gedio, but he couldn't, so he glared at the coffee machine instead.
That's the problem, see? We don't have any money.
Gedio was quiet for a minute.
Well, I would kick you right out of here under normal circumstances, but that would be a death sentence.
Lef gritted his teeth as Gedio laughed at his own joke.
Well, I can't give you a line of credit, but if you have anyone over there who's a tech whiz, I can repair your ship in exchange for their help.
Lef rubbed his eyes.
We don't only need repairs, we also need a safety retrofit by the orders of the Atrian government.
Well, for an old derelict like that...
Hey, don't insult my ship.
Lef could hear Gedio shrugging.
Sorry. Anyway, a retrofit would cost you a pretty penny, to use a human expression. I can repair your ship, but if you don't have the money by the time we're done, it's goodbye for you and no retrofit.
Lef switched off the comm without saying goodbye. He toggled the ship intercom.
Feldo, I've got a job for you.
Zach tried to hide his indignant look.
What? You're sending Feldo? But I'm the chief engineer.
Feldo's older.
Feldo strolled in, wearing Zach's Hawaiian shirt.
What's up, Lef?
Zach crossed his arms.
He wants you to go do some tech whiz stuff on Alpha 2 instead of as chief engineer.
Lef growled.
The only reason you're the chief engineer is because you were the only one available, not because you had merit.
Zach opened his mouth, but when he realized what Lef said, he was speechless.
Lef, just take a break.
Lef stormed out of the room and to his cabin. Zach left too.
Feldo, you better go do that thing. We need the repairs,
he said as he passed. Feldo had no idea what was going on. He held up his paws.
Celia, can you help me out here?
Oh, yeah, since we don't have any money, we're getting repairs in exchange for helping the station owner with something.
He shrugged and walked out.
I'll get right on it.
Lena wrung her paws together.
I've never seen Lef like that. He was a jerk.
Celia locked down her station and got up, patting Lena on the back.
Lef gets very frustrated with things he can't control much. You should have seen him when he thought you were going to be killed by those cultists. Don't worry, he'll run himself down soon enough.
Lena nodded.
I hope you're right.
Zack poked his head into the converted cargo bay and looked around. People were shuffling out to stretch their legs in the village. He shrugged and followed them. The rear loading ramp was open, and a station attendant was helping people down a rope, which was attached to the ground below. As colonists stepped off the ramp and suddenly became weightless, they flailed around comically before being secured to the rope and sent on their way. The loading bay was filled with laughter and a general good air, but Zack wasn't sharing in the fun. He watched stone-faced as Yar clung helplessly to Toliko, as he screamed and she laughed uncontrollably. The attendant attached them both to the rope and pushed them down, much to the amusement of the gathered crowd. When it came to Zack's turn, he attached himself and floated down effortlessly. As his feet broke the gravity barrier, the clamp securing him to the rope grabbed the lifeline, slowing his descent. He landed on his feet gently and detached himself. He strolled along the sidewalks, watching tiny go-kart-like vehicles taking people around the park.
Am I just your average engineer?
He muttered to himself. Lef was right. He was practically right out of school, green and convenient. Though Zack didn't know much about Feldo's past, he knew he had to at least be 30 years old. And Celia had let slip that he had once been in a position of power on a ship before he was forced to become a pirate. Zack kicked a rock across the street. He briefly wondered why there would be a rock on his space station, but he dismissed the thought. Maybe Feldo would be a better chief. Zack was brought out of his brooding by a long gasp from his left. He looked over and spotted Toliko and Yar beside a fountain. Toliko was bouncing up and down.
That is so cool!
Zack walked over to see what the fuss was about. The fountain sprayed a jet of water into a glass dome, which was held in place by thin pillars. It was high enough to break the gravity barrier, so the water splashed around in interesting ways until it dropped back into the gravity zone and into the fountain. It was a creative way of making use of the environment to create a unique piece of art. He was appreciating the fountain when Toliko tugged at his arm.
Hey, Zack! Let me borrow yours, Scum.
What? Don't you have your own?
Toliko laughed.
I left it on the ship. Come on, I gotta call Lena and tell her to get down here.
Zack shrugged and handed it over. She called the frontier, and Lena answered.
Lena! It's so nice down here. Grab Lef, and let's make it a double date.
Toliko covered the mic piece as Lena answered, whispering to Zack.
Hey! I don't have a date. Be my date!
No.
Okay. Yar, you're my date!
Huh?
She uncovered the mic.
Aw. Come on, Lena. Make him come.
Zack and Yar both snickered, and Toliko shot them looks.
Okay. We'll wait.
She hung up and tossed the SCOM back to Zack.
Here you go, Grumpy.
Zack caught his SCOM and walked off, not wanting to face Lef again, as much as he hated to admit it. Alpha 2 was a rather bright place. The system it was in had 2 suns, and the place was constantly bathed in sunlight. Hence why everything was so white, and why Zack had to wear sunglasses. He looked around, seeing none of the Atrians wearing them. That was one thing all Atrian species had in common: a retina that could block UV rays and any damage or pain sunlight might cause. He was lost in thought about Atrian evolution when a shout from behind him caused him to jump.
Zack!
He froze. That voice. It couldn't be.
Rico?
Zack spun around to see none other than Rico standing there with a huge grin on his face.
Rico!
Zack ran over and gave him a firm hug.
What the hell are you doing here?
Rico laughed as he patted Zack on the back.
Hey, it's a small universe.
Zack realized he was hugging another man in public and quickly let go.
So, I haven't seen you since college. What's up?
Oh, you know, this and that. Just happened to drift to this place and I set up shop.
When you say shop, you don't mean to say you actually opened an antique store?
That I did. Come on, we have some catching up to do.
Feldo floated through the air, holding on to the gas jetpack of Geddio as he gave him a tour of Alpha 2. Geddio was a raccoon. He was stout and always in a good mood, but he held a no-nonsense attitude and almost never took no for an answer. He pointed to a cluster of scaffolding extending out towards the gas giant.
And that there is the launch bay for our gas mining operation. We installed it last year, and it's turning a tidy profit.
Feldo gulped.
This is all very interesting, but could we get somewhere where there's gravity?
Geddio laughed, a deep belly laugh.
Not found your zero-G legs yet, eh? Alright, I'll show you where the problem is.
Geddio accelerated towards a building that was suspended in the metal framework. Geddio twisted himself mid-air and landed on the platform, Feldo tumbling off his back.
Oof.
Geddio laughed again as he pulled Feldo up.
Come on, let's get down to business.
He led Feldo inside the control room. Feldo had to take a minute to look around. The place was stunning, walls lined with servers, screens, and camera feeds, not to mention devices for almost any task one might have to perform on a station like this.
Hey, Geddio, this place is amazing.
Glad you like it. Well, unfortunately, with all this impressive stuff, things are bound to go wrong.
Feldo looked at a nearby screen, a list of all currently docked ships. He skimmed the list. The Frontier was there, and Skylinks. Geddio watched as Feldo just stood there, staring at the name of Terry's ship.
The problem's over here.
Feldo shook his head, making a mental note to keep an eye out for Terry. He wasn't ready to talk to her again. Geddio led him to a computer station with a very frustrated-looking IT tech, slamming his hand on the keyboard.
Damn it! That one got sent to the protein resequencer. Earl, shut down resequencer 8.
Earl flipped a switch on a panel across the room. Geddio laughed.
Oh, don't worry, Chad. We have help. All right, Feldo. I'll let Chad explain the problem.
Chad glanced up at Geddio.
What? I thought you were gonna explain it.
Chad was skinny, pale, and wore huge glasses, but his chin was chiseled from stone.
Now's not the time to get embarrassed. Explain the problem.
Yes, sir.
Geddio walked off to take care of some administrative business. Chad sighed and pointed at the screen.
All right, we have a problem with the bathrooms. They keep sending the waste to weird places. We tracked it down to a computer problem, but now I'm not so sure.
Your computer's saying shit to the protein resequencer. Ha!
Chad placed his head in his hands.
Yes, now can you help? It's only a matter of time before it goes to a fountain or something.
Feldo knew a lot about computers, not as much as machines, but he was very proficient. After looking over the control software and finding no problems, Chad's bewilderment became clear.
How could there be a problem? The software works fine.
Chad shrugged.
It's very strange.
Feldo opened the folder containing all the files used to run the software. In the folder labeled Transfer, Feldo found a huge amount of DLL files.
What's all this? Shouldn't there be normal files here?
Chad thought for a moment.
It looks like the software delegates the transfer protocols to an outside source.
Feldo snapped his fingers.
Yes. That outside source must see what's malfunctioning.
But I didn't know there was a second system running the plumbing. No one told me.
Feldo swatted him on the back.
Don't feel bad. Whoever designed this thing deserves to be slapped.
Chad chuckled as Feldo tried to find out where the second system was. After some tampering with one of the DLLs, he was led to a location where the second system had to be.
There, in the middle of the public park.
Yeah, that would be the main pipe everything passes through. There must be a second computer there. Come on!
Feldo and Chad walked hastily through the park, Feldo constantly glancing behind his back and scouring the park. Chad glanced at him.
You look like you've seen a ghost and you're expecting it to jump out and spook you.
Feldo didn't answer. Chad was exactly right. Chad practically tripped over the hatch labeled access pipe. He righted himself.
This is it.
He pulled the hatch up, his staff badge beeping, signaling the automatic lock was disengaged. Feldo jumped into the shallow hole. A large pipe ran by, and a single laptop sat on a table, wired from every port to the wall.
What is this mess?
Chad watched as Feldo opened the laptop. It was dead. Feldo shook his head.
Who installed this?
I don't know. It must have been installed before I came here.
Feldo searched around and saw a power cable lying on the ground. He sighed, replaced the cable, and booted the computer. He stood, his eyes peeking over the hatch. He glimpsed a single brilliant blue eye and dove for the floor.
Shh!
He stayed on the floor, and eventually he saw Terry's back as she passed the hatch, her tail swirling casually. Chad glanced at her, then back at Feldo. He smiled a couple minutes later.
Is that your ex?
Feldo leaned on the edge of the hole, watching Terry round a corner.
Not exactly.
Zack and Rico laughed uncontrollably as they stumbled into curios. Rico slammed his hand on the table.
He did what?
Zack wiped tears from his eyes.
he... I can't say it again.
They eventually settled down and Zack could look around the shop.
Wow, you've got a ton of crap in here.
Rico punched him on the arm.
Hey, some of this stuff cost me a fortune. Look at this.
He picked up a long stick that had a short metal rod sticking out of the end.
This is the most famous rifle in history.
Zack's jaw dropped.
That is a rifle?
Rico pulled back a lever and the gun made a loud ping sound.
Yep, over 400 years old. Cost me a fortune.
Wow.
Rico put the gun down and led Zack around the room, pointing out interesting things and telling anecdotes about how he came by them. Zack picked up an antique toy block and tossed it into the air.
A very interesting collection. Although I can't imagine stuff like this sells very well.
Rico caught the block midair and placed it back on the shelf.
People from all over dock here. Many of them are suckers.
Zack took another look around the room.
You never left an explanation as to why you left so suddenly. I missed you, man.
Rico walked behind the counter and sat down.
I had to leave because I hated that school. Don't even know why I was there in the first place. Nothing personal, but I saw an opportunity to leave and I took it.
Just then, Lenny walked into the shop. Hey, Rico. Hey, hello. Rico jumped up.
Ah, Lenny. Just in time to meet my friend Zack. Zack, this is Pink Lenny. Don't call him Pink.
They shook hands.
Hello, Lenny. Strange name for an Atrian.
Zack said, switching to Atrian. Lenny tried his best to keep a polite air about him.
I was brought up by humans. I don't speak Atrian.
Oh, my bad.
Rico glanced out the door, then pulled both of them upstairs.
Zack, I just remembered. I have a little problem I could use your help with.
He led them into an upstairs kitchen and sat at a table.
I have some things I need transported. Just a little cargo.
Zack sat down.
Really? We won't do it for free.
Rico inwardly cursed, but outwardly smiled.
Name your price.
We need to pay for a safety refit. Pay it off, and I'm sure my captain will agree to transport your dusty relics.
Lenny's eyes screamed no at Rico, but Rico smiled.
That's a lot of money. But since you're my friend and you're doing me a favor, all right.
They shook on it.
Cool. I'll show you our ship if you want.
Rico stood.
Sounds good.